discovery made on a South Carolina plantation. It's a story that starts with a secret that, well, the earth itself just refused to keep.
So, picture this. It's 1891, and a surveyor is just out there, mapping the property, and he stumbles upon something deeply unsettling. 14 graves. And the weirdest part? They were all dug on the exact same night.
And get this, there were no headstones, no markers, absolutely nothing to say who was buried there or why. Just this lingering, silent question. What on earth could have happened that would require a secret, mass burial like this?
So to figure this out, we've got to go back in time a bit, all the way back to 1854. That's when a new owner shows up, and he has absolutely no idea that the land he just bought is hiding this just terrible, profound story.
Right, so this is really where our story begins, with this central, haunting mystery. And it's up to the new owner, a guy named Samuel Brennan, to slowly start pulling at the threads.
Now, Samuel, he was a merchant's son from Charleston. Ambitious, for sure, but totally green when it came to the grim realities of plantation life. And he starts to notice something off. The people working on his new property, they were productive, yeah, but also just eerily quiet, kind of moving through their work like ghosts.
And pretty quickly, he realizes the place he bought isn't just a bit run down, it's actively hiding something. It's like the people, the land, even the dusty old record books, they were all holding on to a secret.
So he starts digging through the old plantation ledgers, and that's when he finds it. In the records for July 1850, there's a 10-day gap where there's just nothing. And then, right after, these totally bizarre entries pop up. Payments to a doctor, a reverend, and then this chillingly bureaucratic line, property record adjustment. And next to it, 14 deceased. I mean, come on, it was a clear cover-up. So Samuel starts pushing for answers, right? He won't let it go. And finally, the plantation's overseer, a man named Henry, he kind of breaks down and points him in the right direction. He says, the person you need to talk to is Ruth. She saw everything. And so he finds Ruth, an elderly woman who had lived on that land her entire life. And she agrees to tell him the real story. And what she tells him, it's not a story about some disease or a terrible accident. It's a story about a deliberate and incredibly powerful choice. She starts by telling him about the previous owner, a man named Charles Dunmore. And this guy, he was brutal. He was apparently facing financial ruin, so he just pushes the enslaved people to the absolute breaking point. We're talking more work, less food, all in the brutal summer heat. And then the crisis hits. A young girl named Sarah collapses and dies from heat exhaustion. And Dinore's response? To just demand more work. But here is where Ruth does something really, really important. She refuses to let Samuel see these 14 people as just a number in a ledger. She makes him see them as people. She tells him about Joseph, the singer with a deep, rich voice. Diana, who is secretly teaching her daughter how to read. Marcus, who carved little wooden animals for the children. You see, these were individuals, with families, with skills, with dreams. She tells him about a secret meeting they had, right after Sarah's death. And in that meeting, a young woman named Grace asked this just harrowing question. She basically said, what if we decide that we'd rather die standing up than live another day on our knees? They had realized there was no escape. You couldn't negotiate, there was no way to win. They were trapped in a system that was literally designed to just slowly work them to death. And this is the crucial turning point. They made a conscious, collective decision. And you have to understand, this wasn't an act of despair, and it wasn't suicide in the way we might think of it. It was an assertion of their will. It was a choice to face death on their own terms, to seize one final moment of dignity, instead of just enduring a slow, degrading death under Dinoir. Okay, so let's go to the morning of July 15th, 1850. This is where it all comes to its tragic and maybe inevitable conclusion. So that morning, the 14 of them get dressed in their best clothes. They walk together to the main house, and Joseph Hirricks, the singer, he steps forward as their spokesman, and he just calmly informs Dunor that they're done. They're not working for him anymore. Dunor, he just can't comprehend this level of defiance. It's totally outside his worldview. So he goes inside, comes back out with a rifle, and gives them one last chance. Get back to the fields. But they just stood their ground. They didn't even flinch. Joseph simply looked at him and said, "We know." And in that one moment, you can feel the entire power dynamic just shift. They had already thought through every possible consequence. They had accepted their fate. And by doing that, they had taken away Dinor's only real weapon.
their fear of death.
And so, he fired. Over the course of an hour, Charles Denore murdered all 14 of them, one by one. They didn't run. They didn't beg. Ruth told Samuel that some of them were actually singing spirituals as they waited.
That night, it was Henry, the overseer, who led the rest of the community in digging those unmarked graves we started with. They had to do it in secret, to protect the living from dangerous questions. They buried their friends, their family, and the truth of what had happened that day.
But as Samuel Brennan was learning, the story didn't actually end there with that secret burial. Because knowing a truth like that, it demands a response. You can't just walk away.
Samuel was just horrified by what he'd heard. So he worked with Ruth in the community. They couldn't put up stone markers, right? That would draw all sorts of dangerous attention. So instead, they planted 14 dogwood trees, one for each person, a living memorial that would bloom beautiful and white every single spring.
And you can see here just how that legacy was carried forward. It wasn't just a single act of remembrance, and then it's over. It was like a chain reaction, passed down through generations. Samuel planted the seeds, literally in this case, but it was his daughter Eleanor who made sure the story would keep growing. She's the one who eventually opened a school on the land and documented the full truth for the future.
And Eleanor, Samuel's daughter, she really understood something profound from all this. That just remembering the names, remembering the tragedy, it isn't enough. Her whole thing was that the past demands action in the present. You have to use it to build a different, better future. And really, that's the question this whole story leaves with us, isn't it? It's such a powerful reminder that history isn't just some collection of dusty old facts. It's a story that carries real weight, real responsibility. And it's always asking each new generation the same thing. What are you going to do with the truths you uncover?